Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, the adaptation was heavily spun, and once it was all said and done, book fans might decide to shun. But did it cost us all the fun? That's right, we're talking Ready Player One. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello there.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello.
I almost cut you off on the there, Andrew.
There.
Drag that one out. Hello. I was like, oh, he's done. No.
You have 2.5 seconds. If you run over your allotted 2.5 seconds, then we just can't be held accountable.
I am the editor. I can add as much time as I want.
They're sending you to the loyalty center.
I can just make Joel silent for the entire episode.
It's like dead air for 3 minutes, and then y'all are like, yeah,
that's a great point.
Great. Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Too bad no one will ever hear you.
That's the most interesting thing I think I've ever heard. I think everybody listening will love what you just said.
What's even better is this explanation is also going to be silent, so they're not even going to know that.
Is this going to be the Andrew show?
Oh no! Yeah, there's no intro. Andrew just starts talking to himself.
Stephen just is edging into the black box with me.
Oh, not the boombox.
Not the boombox.
Anyways, so as we've already mentioned, this episode is for Ready Player One, and that is the movie, not the book.
Not the book.
There are going to be a lot of allusions and callbacks to the book in this episode. It is almost unavoidable. However, we're talking about the movie. Shout out to our Patreon, Daniel, who suggested this episode for us. Thank you for that. If you would like to make your own suggestion, you can go to spoilersintendedpodcast.com and join our Discord or our Patreon or both. These are great ways to make suggestions for us for future episodes.
And it's kind of in the point of like, if you just suggest it, we're probably going to do it at some point. Now, there's no guarantee that it'll happen within the next century, but it will happen.
Next century. Woo! This is a long-lived podcast already.
Yep. Soon, TM.
Soon. But before we jump into that, because we are headed into heavy-duty 80s nostalgia here, we thought it'd be a little fun, maybe to not quite reach back to the 80s for some of us, but to maybe talk about some nostalgic video games for us. A little different here. We're not gonna reference media, but we are gonna reference media.
I mean, video games are absolutely media.
Media you interact with.
Interactive media.
As
it were.
So I think I'm gonna give it to Andrew.
Okay, sure. Okay, so my video game nostalgia thing, I don't even know where we're going here, is Raptor Call of the Shadows. This is a top-down action shooter that basically takes place in the industrialized future, where you are a pirate F-14 fighter.
Oh, so it's one of those where the ground is always scrolling past you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 1942, but with a little more angle to it, kind
of. No, it's still just 100% top-down.
I thought the F-14 had like kind of 3D to where you kind of bank like up and
down.
No,
you can, yeah. Yeah, so you have full range of movement within the entire screen. So you can move all the way up to the top or move all the way back down to the bottom.
But you can't change on the Z-axis though.
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically the way that this game plays out is you are just this pirate fighter pilot that is going through and just destroying all of these bases of this like industrialized company, essentially. And you get money for blowing up each of their buildings or ships or, whatever. This is not necessarily a bullet hell game, if you're familiar with the genre, which is literally just so many bullets on the screen that you have like very minimal amounts of movement. This is more action and arcade based, to where you can you can really move around a lot. You can purchase shields for your ship or different weapons that have like auto tracking and lasers, and some that are only air to air, or some that are only air to ground, those kind of things. And this was one of those games that I never actually fully owned the actual game. So this is a shareware game where you could play like basically the first like 3 levels for free. And then if you wanted to play more, then you'd have to purchase the full game for like, $20 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And I never, until it came out on GOG, which is Great Old Games or something like that, back in like 2010 or 2011, I'd never actually played the rest of the game. I'd only played just the freeware version of it.
As you do when $20 is just unobtainium for an 8-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. And so I spent pretty much my entire childhood, because this was the only game that my computer would play besides another unnamed game, which Joel will mention soon. And this was the only one that I had that wasn't like an educational game, like Dr. Brain's Mystery Island or Gizmos and Gadgets.
Yeah, I had one like that. It was a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game on an entire stack of 3.5 floppy disks.
Yep. Or like Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, I think I
where she steals like the Eiffel Tower or
the pyramids.
Yeah. But yeah, so this game is fantastic. I think you can actually get it on Steam now for only maybe like $5. And if you were into top-down shooters, it is fantastic. It's actually really smooth, and it has the actual replayability is really good. So whenever you go back to basically a level that you've already played to get more money, it's actually the next difficulty higher. Yeah. So if you start on easy, next time you go back it'll be on normal, next time you go back on hard, next time you go back on ace. And so it makes it harder for you to actually farm more money until you have just, basically once you get like the auto tracking weapons, it makes the game pretty easy to play, but there's still so much going on that you have to like constantly make sure that you have enough shields and everything to fight the bosses at the end of each level.
So this is your Galaga, which is a reference that is not going to appear in this movie.
You're right. It's not. But Galaga is also another really good one. But I can only play the true arcade version of it. All of the Galaga versions that have come out on like PC or like emulators or whatever, they don't have the same like refresh rate or tactile feel that the one in the arcade did, because it's just running off of a different system.
Yeah. It's hard to emulate that, honestly. Joel?
Well, I am going to take Star Wars Dark Forces for my game. This is a game that spawned an entire series of Star Wars games. There was Dark Forces 2, Dark Forces 3 / Jedi Academy, and then there was a spinoff Jedi Academy 2, just a whole franchise.
That was wrong.
That was wrong?
So there's Jedi Dark Forces 1, Dark Forces 2, then Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast.
Oh, that's right.
And then Jedi Academy.
That's right.
Anyways, well, we got really pedantic. Joel?
Well, no, Jedi Outcast is probably one of the most amazing Star Wars games ever made.
That one was really cool. I loved it. Not talking about it right now.
Yep,
so
correct.
Dark Forces, it was a really interesting experience looking back on it, because it's a mixture of 3D animation with the environment and 2D animated characters. They had no depth to them. You saw one side of them or the other side of them.
Yes.
Walking around in this 3D environment. And so with subsequent games, obviously they experimented with more mature technology. But this one for me, it was my older brother's game. And initially we didn't install it correctly. And so you couldn't save your progress. And sometimes like files would get put in certain places and you would end up with like in-game gear at the very beginning. It's just really weird stuff.
Maybe your brother was just trying to hack. And he's like trying to push stuff around. But but if I could get the thermal detonators, it's so much easier.
But going through this one, I was absolutely too young to play this one when I first started playing it, because like once you got to like I would get to the third level, which is where you go down into the sewers and you have to fight Dianogas, and it's dark.
I remember that level.
You can't see them until they start biting you, and they go straight through your shields and hit your health. And it's just every time that you hear the tick, and you see the red stuff show up on the screen, you're just like, ah.
Well, especially as a kid, it's just terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it was. I came back to it a few years later, because a lot of times I would play up to level 3 and just be like, no, I'm good. That was a fun 2 levels.
Well, and you couldn't save it, so it was time to be done.
Well, and the second level is actually pretty creepy too, because you are going into essentially like a desolated base, and there's like dead bodies all over the place.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. It was the Dino.
Okay, well, fine.
It was the Dino.
That scared me.
Anything that would get up in your face and do unblockable damage, like that's the thing that would trigger my fight or flight response. You know?
Did you ever get to the level where?
I mean, I beat the game.
Okay, yeah, where you are in Jabba's like sail barge in space.
Oh yeah, and you had
little crate dragons.
You had to fist fight the crate dragons.
Yeah,
that took a few tries, but that was definitely did not get to that point until after we had sorted out our incorrect install issues and could actually save. You know?
Jeez.
So, go ahead.
No, but I was just saying that's kind of the first shooter that I ever played, and really was my stepping point into both Star Wars video games in general and the shooter genre.
Yeah. So my fond memory of Dark Forces was sitting in my kitchen, because this is where we had our computer at the time, and I had my little 2-button joystick that my parents so lovingly bought me. And I attempted to play Dark Forces with a 2-button joystick, and just like one hand on the keyboard, as like an 8-year-old. And it was impossible. Like, because in your mind, like as a kid, you're like, oh, I got this joystick and I have so much control over like where I'm pointing. No, it is not how that works at all.
No, use that mouse.
Yeah. But yeah, just the idea of like just having to like type in command codes into DOS just to open up a game is just so... Wow.
Man, it was cool.
It was really cool.
Felt like a hacker. Just turn it on.
just turn anything up. Yeah.
All right, Steven.
So
you are the oldest.
I am the oldest. I am going to divert away from PC games.
Okay.
And plunge into the original Nintendo.
There you
go. Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
So this was... we got a NES, and it was a Christmas gift for my dad. And which
was now absconded by kids.
Well, that was the strategy, I'm pretty sure, for my parents was, well, it's dad's. So if my sister and I tried to fight over it, then it could just be like, well, no one can play it because it's dad's. So I think that was actually the core strategy.
That's actually a good strategy.
Although my dad also
I may or may not already employ that strategy.
That's a good strategy. But you also like the thing, right?
Yeah, I do enjoy the Switch. So
yes. But my dad also did come home from work with oftentimes more arcade tokens in his pockets than change. So, I mean, he also was playing, Top Gun and these kinds of things.
And then crashing on the aircraft carrier.
The aircraft carrier is so hard to land on. That's not what this is about. But yes, I have vivid memories of really just the NES in general. But at my grandparents', which is when the gift was given, and we hooked it up to the TV. And one of my grandfather cursing at the dog in Duck Hunt. and of my dad being angry about the stupid aircraft carrier for Top Gun. But that's not what this is about. This is about Legends of Zelda. Because this was the first game that we really, really, really played. And when I say played, so this was the original, the gold cartridge, and it came with this big fold-out map of the whole upper world. None of the dungeons, but the upper world. And some parts of it are left blank that you had to explore, and some caves are marked. But there are all these spaces where if you have the candle, you could just burn this bush and it would reveal a secret passage. You go down, you get, bombs or rupees. And my sister and I made it our project over one whole summer of we checked every place that could be bombed, every rock wall, every bush, everything, and made marks on the map, circled out this is where you get rupees, this is where you get bombs, this is where you get arrows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The whole map filled in all the blank spaces. And that, to me, that's really when I think about playing on the Nintendo, that's what I remember was one of us playing while the other one was marking on the map. And, one of us would direct, we even had kind of a system of, well, this way or that way meant left versus right. So we could say, go up, go this way, go up, go that way, et cetera, to move people around based on the map and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of us could beat this boss, and the other one couldn't handle this boss. So we'd hand the controller back and forth. So that's for me, that's the nostalgia was playing that with my sister. So yeah, I mean, I still have it. I still have the NES. It will still turn on. I don't currently have an adapter to get it onto modern TVs, and I might regret the image I get.
You probably would.
But I am curious to try. But yeah, I can't find the map, so I'm a little disappointed by that. It's lurking somewhere out there. I know it.
So I've actually never played a Zelda game.
Wow, that's
Despite being a pretty much wholly Nintendo owner.
Yeah,
so I had
that's pretty
I had a
shocking.
Super NES, or I had access to a Super NES, and then I had an N64, GameCube, and then Wii and Wii U, and then now Switch. And I'm just it's never really been hit me. But I'm not a big RPG guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I would hesitate to call the original Zelda's RPG, and they certainly are now.
Mm-hmm.
Or that kind of explore. I mean,
Well, it's kind of like Pokemon. Like
bit,
and that
Yeah.
was my first, I'll say, like turn-based
Mhm.
combat.
There's no turn-based
experience.
in Zelda.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, well, yeah, because you're just fighting.
yeah, it's all
Swinging the
action
sword.
adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. We were not a slave to one console manufacturer or the other. I think we went NES to a Sega Genesis to a N64 to a PlayStation 2 to an Xbox 360. I covered the full range.
I think for us, I think it was more just a lot of the more, I'll say quotation marks, wholesome games were on Nintendo.
Yeah.
And if you moved over into like PlayStation or Dreamcast or anything, that was the more adult themed games.
Well, PlayStation and Dreamcast kind of promoted themselves as like the edgy.
Yeah.
We're the radical teenager games.
Yeah,
Trying to play Tekken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. Joel,
So-
did you ever grow up with any consoles?
Yeah, I actually had the same list that Steven had, just starting later. So I started with the N64, went to PS2, and then Xbox 360.
Oh,
Okay,
man
yeah.
of culture. Right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah. So you had the full gamut.
Yeah, so, and my first Zelda game was Ocarina of Time.
Which is perfect.
And the thing is, I played it in a time before the proliferation of easy access to walkthroughs and anything like
Mhm.
that. And I didn't realize that you could use the Temple of Time to revert back to being a little kid.
Oh, so you couldn't like,
And
go
so
through the.
I ended up just being stuck. The only places I could go, I couldn't find a way to get there because
you couldn't fit in
I
these
couldn't
spaces.
go.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have gotten the Prima Nintendo Power Guide.
Yeah, totally.
walkthrough.
Totally. That was a thing that I could have done with my 10-year-old money.
Yeah. Well, so my this is just kind of getting off on a tangent. My favorite
good at
N64
that.
game was Jet Force Gemini, which
I
is
know that name.
it is a overarching span action adventure that is kind of first person and third person shooter at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this was definitely one of the later N64 games where they pushed the limits of what the controller could actually do.
You had to have the graphics expansion pack.
Yeah, you had to have the expansion pack, but then the controller, if you wanted to switch into first person mode, then you'd have to basically claw your hands to use the C yellow buttons as moving, and then the aiming was the actual joystick, but then you had to shoot with the left and right triggers.
Right.
It was so weird, but you basically had to have the guide to play this game. There was no other way to do it, just because you got to the end of the first quotation marks half of the game, and they're like, oh, by the way, all the things you didn't know that you were supposed to save, you got to save them. Now you have to go back to every single level with every single character, and get every single one. And it's just oh god.
Ocarina of Time, the Water Temple was the first introduction to. I think I'm going to go get a guide. I'm so sick of raising and lowering water levels and trying to figure out what has changed. Anyways, a little PTSD there. But
you just see flashbacks.
Oh yeah, just I can see before you have the long shot, you just have the hook shot because you got the long shot in the water temple, so you have to shoot it out to hit a post to spin it to raise and lower the water level, and it just doesn't reach because it's not the right one, and you have to find it, but you don't know where it is, and you can't figure out where the water. All right. So moving on from that PTSD onto a different kind of PTSD, maybe. We are going to be talking about Ready Player One, the movie. And Joel, you want to give us a little synopsis?
Okay. So we're dealing with sort of a near future dystopian society where we're looking at a post-economic collapse, not really like nuclear fallout kind of situation, but there's a major depression going on and everybody is just kind of scraping to get by.
Life is just kind of bad.
Yeah. And we also, in this world, everything is done online in a virtual environment called the Oasis. And so this is very similar to what a lot of people are attempting to construct in real life currently.
Oh, the metaverse.
with the metaverse and
Metaverse.
projects of
We're gonna
that
get
nature. So it should be a concept that's already somewhat familiar. And schools are done this way, jobs are done this way, entertainment is done this way, everything is done this way. And so we pick up with our main character, Wade, who is a gunter, which is an egg hunter. And what he's doing is he is attempting to find Easter eggs that the original designer of the game placed there as a puzzle for essentially handing down ownership of this virtual world.
Right. And that's after the creator has died.
Right. So this is the terms of his will, essentially, is whoever can solve my puzzles and claim the prize will claim ownership of this incredibly lucrative virtual space.
Right.
Because that's what you do when you have a multi-billion-dollar
go full
franchise.
Just go full Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so from there, it is an enormous 80s nostalgia fest and 80s themed hijinks ensue.
Although, interestingly enough, watching the movie, it's really easy to say it's 80s nostalgia themed from the book. But when you watch the movie, there's a lot of much more modern references.
It's just more themed.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie is the Leonardo DiCaprio meme of just pointing at the screen.
Yep.
Oh, I've seen that before. I know
what that is.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, look, it's that new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles characters that no one saw the movie of.
With the noses that aren't there.
Yeah. Or like, oh, look, it's Halo.
At least this was made before Cats.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow. That's the score.
How dare you even speak that name?
So anyway, speaking of score, we have this split up between our technical score and our entertainment value. Our technical score is split up across our 4 pillars of review, that being spectacle, performance, score, and plot, for which we gave this film a 6.2 out of 10. So not great.
That's not the worst.
It's not the worst, but it's not really something
Good
to be
either.
proud of.
No.
Per se. And then we keep our entertainment value score separate because your enjoyment of a film or series or novel is not necessarily directly related to how technically good it was. And in this case, we enjoyed it even less. We gave it a 5.3 out of 10.
Woo.
Pretty brutal. Now, I know all of us are book readers of Ernest Cline's novel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I think we all read that before watching the film.
Yes. And I also believe that all of us are fans of the novel.
I was kind of cool on it. Like, it was an interesting concept, but I didn't connect with any of the characters.
Okay.
So the actual ride was a bit tedious, I found from the book, but dealing with the concepts was very intriguing.
So what's interesting is I'm actually was kind of on the flip side. So I read the book in one sitting, and I mean there's caveats. I read reasonably fast, not the fastest or whatever, but reasonably fast. And I was up to like 4 just to finish it. And it wasn't necessarily for the ride, but more just for how much I enjoyed the shout outs and call outs to the 80s
and the actual mystery of the hunt.
Yeah, the puzzle and the clues and there are, I don't want to go into specific things that occur in the book here because that's not what we're really here for. But there are specific scenes that were just like, man, this is so great because it's just, again, I am the oldest one here, but probably more of that hit for me, especially having an older sister and these kind. I know you have older brothers, but there's almost such a gap there sometimes. So a lot of that hit really well. So of course, then we come to the movie and it's kind of like, well, this just doesn't scratch that same itch because, we've got some nostalgia, but it is all over the place.
Yeah. So with, and I'm kind of on the same lines with Steven here. I read it in 2 sittings, and actually read it. Not, this was before the audiobook kind of craze hit. And whenever, I just got the book and I was like, here it is. We're going to read the whole thing. And I read the whole thing in basically 2 days. And not because I genuinely loved the story. It was kind of more of I really liked the mystery of it. of trying to figure out some of the clues. But then there are some other concepts in the book that were just so fascinating to me that one of the key elements in just the book, and this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a part where the characters are inside of a popular movie and they are basically playing one of the characters that are in the movie, but they have to play it to be like play it accurately.
Yeah.
So like if you flub a line or if you flub a movement, then you get deducted points and whatnot. And that is just one of the coolest ideas I've ever heard of from a game standpoint.
Yeah, no, that was one of those. That was the thing I was trying to avoid spoiling, basically. But that was, and I'm not going to tell you what it was, but this is what happened. No, like that, like reading through that, and just all like the little pieces and the clues, and kind of bring out the nerd in me here, but the amount of research that he goes into it, and diving into a lot of these fairly obscure or not, like they just weren't, like Joust was just not a game. Like I knew Joust. I played Joust. Was I obsessed with it? No, it was a hard, stupid game.
Yeah.
But like just like that kind of commitment to these kinds of games just fascinated me.
Yeah. And so, fast forward to 2018, whenever Steven Spielberg directed and produced this film, Ready Player One.
Oh my gosh, was it really 20? It was 2018.
Yes.
That is so long ago, and also not very long ago.
We're kind of, we're gushing a little bit on the book just because it really scratched a lot of these itches that had a lot of these, these concepts that we really liked. And they took it and they said, we see all this and we're just going to move it to the side and we're going to do everything over here that is nothing like the book.
Yeah. So it moves very much into kind of the action adventure realm.
Yeah.
As opposed to the puzzle
solving kind of.
Yeah, like the puzzles are still present in completely different forms, but like the process of solving puzzles is still central to the plot. But the puzzles themselves are simplistic, and like the ways that they go about solving them are just like, well, okay, yeah, I guess
barely even hard to like solve. For them, or at least what it seems. They make it seem like it's not hard.
It does feel very effortless.
Like
once, and I think maybe that is part of what gets me, is because even once he figures out what he needs to do in the book, there's still skill involved. Like he has to be able to beat this game, or he has to be able to do this. Whereas these is like, well, once you know the trick, well, it's just easy.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, there's also some issues with the way, whenever you're translating a book into a film, especially a book that one has a ton of inner monologue, but then it also takes place in a completely virtual world, you have to really sell the CGI that you're going to be utilizing for the characters and the environments and everything. And there are definitely moments in the film that look fantastic. There are also character moments, like specifically character models and just like character interactions within the Oasis that just don't really do anything. They don't like it. Like they're just kind of like, I don't know. They just don't. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I actually had kind of the opposite take on that, because I felt that the way that they did the CGI texturing for the in-game avatars was, to me, seemed like an artistic choice to go in a direction avoiding realism on purpose. Because they're like, we're reminding you that we're in a game. These things aren't supposed to look real because we're in the game right now.
Yeah.
Well, so I think where it falls down, and this is kind of a mixture of the issue of CGI and also what they went for with all the properties that were on display, is when you have large objects and scenery pieces, those are easy to kind of make look good in CGI because it's consistent. Like we have an icy landscape. Well, that's pretty much consistent with itself. But where the characters kind of fell apart is they're kind of conglomerations of all these pieces, even from going from one character to the next, or going from a character's head to their torso, where there's no consistent style to them, but there's also that kind of veneer of pseudo-realism CGI put on top of it, if that makes sense. And to me, I think that really highlighted the fact of just how much a bunch of these different characters and properties that were put in it just didn't fit in the world, because their style wasn't there because it was kind of smashed flat underneath that final layer.
That's a really interesting point, because looking at the latest Kingdom Hearts release, there's been a lot of images that kind of showcase the same issue, because you have the main character who's like a Final Fantasy art style, and you've got like Goofy in the background and standing next to the captain from the Black Pearl in Pirates of the Caribbean, right? And those three are
vastly different,
very, very different, but they all have the same, they all have to be rendered in the same engine, so they're going to look like they have the same texturing package on them,
right?
And so there's just kind of a sort of an uncanny valley in and of itself about that, because you're mixing so many different styles. And so I can see that being off-putting, because you're going to encounter the same sort of thing whenever you're pulling from so many different art styles.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's just kind of unavoidable. And because they kind of committed to preserving what each individual property should be, and not like just enforcing a full, like a stylization of that was consistent with itself throughout the universe. So it just makes the characters feel really off in a way that is hard to, I'm trying to describe it now, but it's hard to describe and it's hard to pin down, but it just kind of sticks with you throughout the whole movie, for me at least.
So that was not something that I ran into, but I can see what you're talking about.
So, and kind of piggyback off that, the both the book and the film, the Oasis is very inconsistent with what players are and items are kind of capable of doing.
Yeah.
Because basically, like I'll say just the power level, for just lack of a better term, goes from either completely useless to just game ending overpowered.
Yes. Right.
And all of that, everything in between is obtainable to any player, period. And with that, you can also make your character look like anything you want. You can, there's so many different options, in the sense of there's quite literally no rules, and that's one of the core themes of
it's freedom.
Of Halliday and the VR game that he essentially made. And when you have that, like, you run into a lot of inconsistencies of like, well, this character can do this now, but then they also could technically do it later, but they don't. It's kind of like the Superman complex, where he kind of forgets that he has powers sometimes. To work their way around writing themselves into a hole.
There are, and we'll get deeper into the plot, a little later when we can talk particulars. But there are some inconsistencies there as well. That definitely hurt. And I don't know if it was just a move into the more of the action adventure, or just the fact that they kind of left, a written and well-received book behind, in a sense?
I think probably some of the general change choices that they've made for the film is honestly because of general licensing.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're writing a book, it's completely fiction. You don't have to license basically anything. It's just words on a page. But the second that you introduce a visual medium,
you're using likenesses.
You're using likenesses, and it's a whole different ballgame. And one reason why WB, I'm pretty sure WB.
It was WB.
Yeah, WB basically has a very large breadth of characters and likenesses that they can use, but there's also not all of them.
Yeah.
And whenever you run into that, you have to pay lots of money for it. And, people that are financing these kind of films, they have to accept that they're going to pay, $14 million for, 10 seconds of a starfighter from Star Wars or whatever.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole lot of kind of playing ball and trying to balance how much your budget is, and then how much you actually want to concede to changing the story. And it's possible that they got to kind of like a general estimate of what the movie would cost just to get everything that they wanted in there. And they saw it and they're like, you know what? Let's just take all of this stuff and let's move it over to the side. We're going to use basically 95% of all of our individual licenses, because we can already do that for free. And we are going to cater the story around that.
Well, that's why, they have a scene, we reference in the book, they act in this scene, right? Well, they have a scene from a movie, I'm not going to name it, where that they participate in to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why that's not the movie that's in the book, and it's because Warner Brothers owns the rights to that movie. They don't own the rights to the other movies.
Yeah,
so they're just like, well, we'll pick something.
Yeah, and it's possible too that like they could get the rights to say the name or say use the music or do this kind of thing or that. but then they don't have the rights to use the likeness of a certain actor
or a character.
Yeah, like there's so many ins and outs when you get into a visual medium that are roadblocks essentially for someone that wants to use your IP.
Yeah, particularly with something that is so heavily referential to other works as this is.
And it's absolutely necessary for the story. Like you have to be able to
entire
reference
story
these
is
words.
about references.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I actually I made a note about that. It was a spectacle of how to get so many properties into one movie, or just practice for Space Jam 2. All right. Well, on that note, as we prepare to connect to the intermission, if you can't stand the nostalgia of spoilers, then this is your time to zero out. If you like what you've heard so far, then check out our other content at spoilersintendedpodcast.com. But if you're ready to see what else the Oasis can offer, then strap on your X1 haptic boot suit with the microfiber crotch inlay, because it's time to boogie. Alrighty, everyone, welcome back from the intermission. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you did not put in your microfiber crotch inlay, because that's an actual line in a movie, and dear Lord.
I die a little inside every time you say it.
So much credit. I'm going to keep saying it. I just took
You're
away
kill
1
me by
year
the
of
end
your
life. Oh man.
Well, if you didn't get the message, it is all spoilers all the time from here on out. And here we go. We're going to kick it off with the spectacle.
Yep.
And I'm going to change it. I'm going to take it first.
Sure. Knock yourself out.
So I have to get on the right page for this. Apparently, I wasn't as prepared to go first as I thought, but
you played yourself.
I did play myself. I gave Spectacle a 7.
Okay.
So you know what? I'm gonna give him props. I got to see an RX-78 on screen fight Mechagodzilla.
That's a Gundam, just for
reference. Yeah, that is the granddaddy of all Gundams, the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
And it was beautiful.
It was beautiful, right? And it the way it moved was great. I loved it.
I want, like, just take that action scene and just take that and put that with other Gundams and then make a movie out of that.
And do that. Yeah.
That's all you have to do, and you will get my money.
And never show me the characters in that CGI, please. Anyways, so yeah, like, I got those moments. They were great. I was super happy with that. And then the camera kind of panned down and we saw someone's face and just like, ugh. So, besides that, another complaint, and it was something that I did not notice the first time we saw it. We all saw it in theaters, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure actually
we
I
all saw it
together in theaters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a long time ago, 2018, a long time ago. Anyways, and at the time, I was like, well, this was it was decent. It was okay. And now, watching it at home, they have this whole scene with The Shining, right? And nothing about The Shining was CGI. Like the hallway scene, it's just they just played the movie and they put the CGI characters in it, and the CGI characters struggle, like in like the hallway with H. He or she has no interaction with the environment whatsoever because it's the CGI just on the movie.
Yeah,
and that was kind of tough. That was kind of frustrating. And like other bits within that set piece, yeah, of course they were interacting because they weren't just ripping straight film reel.
Yeah.
But like that one in particular stood out pretty badly. And I mentioned it in the pre-spoiler stuff about how like just the attempt to make things consistently inconsistent really kind of hurt, it felt like.
Yeah. Well, in particular, the whole Shining sequence just doesn't really make any sense at all. So because essentially like they're all like in the simulation together, and then the second that they kind of like figure out the clue, which isn't really that much of a clue at all, they just all get kicked out except for Artemis, and then she figures it out by jumping on some zombies just to go like
she like
save the girl from dancing. Yeah. And then then she gets it, and then like everyone else goes through and do it again. It's just there's problems.
That's plot. That's a plot issue.
Problem. I know. I'm trying not to like harp on it too much.
No. The scene like it had spectacle issues, right, where they just didn't line up as well as it should have,
Yeah.
and then had other issues as well. And it was just kind of, it was a plug and play. They had to swap out War Games for something.
Yeah.
And they picked The Shining.
I guess maybe to play it off for jokes.
Well, and I guess also, I mean, it works. This is plot. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah,
Somebody else pick up. Somebody else pick up.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna shift tone a little bit because
Right.
I gave Spectacle a 10.
Oh my God.
What?
No. Okay,
What?
and that is because
No, I felt I hurt me a little bit to put a 7, but I couldn't not do it because again, there's just some pieces they deserve it.
Okay, so here's my justification for this 10.
Oh my gosh.
What they set out to do was make nostalgia the movie. And oh my gosh, did they do that? Right? It may not be the nostalgia from the book. It may not be the nostalgia that you wanted, but they grabbed every single piece of IP that they could get their little money grubbing hands on and they shoved it into this thing.
But,
it is the meme of the car salesman patting the top of the movie and saying, there are so many references that we can squeeze into this bad boy.
I mean, okay. Yeah, no, that's a valid
And that is
argument.
absolutely what they set out to do. And they absolutely hit it out of the park with there's so much going on in every single action piece.
Yes.
That it is, you miss stuff because there's just too much. And from that perspective, like signing on for that ride, I felt like it was a 10.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't disagree with you in the sense of, yeah, they crammed, like they put a lot in there. It just didn't always look good or didn't always make sense.
And like I said, I mean, the sense part, sure. But like the difference in styles and I don't know. It didn't hit me with the same sort of uncanny valley experience that you're describing.
Man, it hurt. Like putting a 7 down hurt me a little bit here. I couldn't imagine putting double digits on that one.
All right, so
Andrew?
I've done my thing. I've been generous. Andrew, what you got?
Okay, so I also had a very hard time giving this a 7.
Okay, and so you didn't?
No, I did.
Okay.
I gave it a 7 out of 10, and mostly because the final battle is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely one of the highlights of the film. It is really fun seeing just like, especially all the different weapons and stuff that they're using.
Yeah.
Because if you're familiar with a lot of like first person shooters and everything, like you get to see a lot of that, which is really fun.
Yeah, particularly Halo. Like I picked up a lot of the Halo.
A lot of Halo. Right, then just kind of at the beginning, whenever he's kind of explaining some of the world, and they're on Planet Doom, and H is like fighting people, and then you have Jim Raynor as StarCraft, walking around. Like those kind of things are really fun. And whenever you see a CG, like a traditionally CGI character in there, they look fantastic.
Yeah,
because that is what they're meant to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Parsifal and you see Artemis, and they're kind of cringy. The one thing I do like about Parsifal is that he has a wind setting for his hair. Yeah. And whenever he hits it, it just kind of just wishes around. But I had a really and this, this is probably book bias, but I had a very different idea of what Artemis was going to look like in the book. And then when I saw how they character created her in the movie, it's just never one of those things that ever sat well with me.
Oh, fish lady.
Yeah, it's just really weird. I don't like her eyes, and she has like the porcupine hair, and I don't know. But but I still give it a 7, and like the scenes that everything is still beautifully rendered.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff that is not beautifully rendered is basically everything in real life. Especially the quotation marks car chase scene at the end of the film just does not look good at all.
Oh, yeah. It's hilarious. Like National Treasure did a better car chase.
Oh yeah, they did.
Like, are you kidding me?
Well, because it was actual cars.
Yeah.
But then whenever they blow up the stacks halfway through the film, just like the CGI there just doesn't look really
No, it didn't look good.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Oasis. That's generally where most of the film takes place. But there are other things that happen to where probably the only quotation marks practical in real life effects that I really enjoyed was the walking hologram of whenever he's talking to Sorrento for the first time, and it's kind of building him.
That was a great effect.
Yeah, actually, really cool. But a lot of the other stuff where they're still very much in reality, and they're just trying to do just normal action movie kind of things.
Yeah.
Just doesn't really track.
Yeah.
Now, something
I can see that.
I'll olive branch.
I
because
saw Joel dying inside
Yeah,
as I
I'm
was
like,
making a good point.
My tin isn't aging well.
really you were very enthusiastic about the Oasis stuff.
Yeah, which is totally fine.
And you know what? I'm gonna olive branch. I'm gonna give a good point to the real life stuff, specifically the scenes where you're in the final battle, where you're going from between the final battle to the IOI war room.
Yeah,
when like large amounts of the Sixers get killed and they're all in their little like harnesses and they all down. So I thought that was actually
it's very rule of cool. However,
it makes no sense. No, it's going to come up again in the plot. Don't you worry. But for rule of cool,
it looks
great. Yeah,
yeah. Especially whenever
the cataclysm goes off.
No, not even the cataclysm, but just whenever like someone like kind of like whips the ground and it kills like a line of people and it goes like it hits like all the line like behind it.
There's no way that in game they're in that same configuration.
No, it's a great
awesome.
visual effect. It just makes no sense. Laura and I were both, while we watched this, we were both just like, wait a minute.
Well, he's like, here, have a railgun. He shoots like 6 people in a row, and then all those people just happen to be right behind each other. Anyways.
They could have, if they had just plot, I'm going to leave that be. Anyways, moving forward, this is going to be an entertaining one. I can already tell you that. Performance.
Oh, man.
Joel, you want to start first?
Yeah.
Let's start high.
So I was generous, and I gave it a 6.
Let's go, boys.
I felt like let's actually talk about some stuff that was good out of this. Ben Mendelsohn playing Sorrento rocks.
Fantastic. Yep.
I have never seen anything that he has done that I have not absolutely loved.
He's a fantastic actor.
Lauren, I also had the realization, is that Krennic? Like,
yeah.
Yes, he's a good bad guy.
Yeah. And then honorable mention, Mark Rylance as Halliday sold a eccentric
Autistic.
genius. Yeah. And particularly in the ending scene where Wade is kind of interacting with the pseudo AI version of Halliday, like it was really good. From his half of the scene.
Yeah, well, I love in that scene whenever he is kind of sitting on his desk and he's like, "Oh yes, the egg. Where's the egg?"
Yeah,
and he's like kind of like fumbling around everywhere, and I'm like, "Okay, that's great."
Yeah,
but basically everybody else in the film was
T.J. Miller.
T.J. Miller.
T.J. Miller is IROC.
His bits helped a lot.
I did not enjoy his performance. That is not to say it was not quality.
So there was an issue, right? I'm just going to go ahead and jump in, right?
Yeah.
I gave performance a 5.
Okay.
Ooh, man. You're still too generous.
Well, we have Ben Mendelsohn doing what he can with what he was given, which he did a pretty good job for the most part because what he was given was pretty bad. They had him say some really bad lines. And the reason why like TJ Miller stood out to me is because the weakest points for this are when we put Sorrento into the Oasis because we lose who he is. He doesn't get to have the same emotion. And I mean, that's how like Ben works. Like his face when he sells.
He has very good facial expressions.
Oh yeah. And so you just lose all that. So I think him getting to interact off of IROC, where IROC just has the total out there. So how are we doing? Oh, well, my neck. And a lot of people said a lot of cringy things because they were given terrible dialogue. And his dialogue, I'm not here to say that it was wonderful, but it was at least funny.
Okay.
And it stood out.
Yeah.
Right? It stands out. Outside of that, I actually really liked, I've lost the name. Back up. Lena Waithe. I've probably mispronounced that.
Is she H?
H.
Yeah.
Especially like for like the Shining bit. I ding them on the Shining for not being able to get the CGI mixed into it. But the whole just like, is this a scary movie? Yeah. Oh, I don't watch scary movies. Come on out. And then it's like, oh, hey, little girls. Is like, we all know where this is going.
Yeah.
Yep.
And H doesn't. And that payoff is actually pretty good. And so I thought that her job there and also in real life was actually pretty good.
Yeah. Some of the scenes whenever she's like driving the van, but very
those
much
were just lost. We hit plot. We're gonna get into that van. We're gonna get so far into that van.
Well, no, but it's really just like it's very much the James Bond Sean Connery driving down the road with like a projector behind him, and he's just kind of like moving his hands back and forth.
They have the Hollywood wheel where the wheel just loosely moves everywhere. Yeah, but I mean that's not so much. That's just what she got.
Yeah,
and she at least sold out for the launch.
Oh yeah, so. Sure.
Andrew.
Okay, so I gave it a 4.
Yeah. Now these are all deserved scores.
Yeah. So, kind of, everything. Basically, the only saving grace for me was Ben Mendelsohn and T.J. Miller. Olivia Cooke was okay. She wasn't given good. She wasn't really given a good script.
No.
And this is more of a plot thing, but I'm sad that whenever you have good female actresses that are just relegated to being a love interest. And basically only serve the plot to be a romantic thing.
I mean, she actually does.
She does a couple things.
Does kind of more in the movie, I think, than in the book, because she's the one that infiltrates IOI here, whereas in the book,
it's Wade.
Wade.
Yeah, so like there's a couple, but again, plot things.
Plot things. Yeah. We'll get to that point.
But honestly, the biggest travesty was Ty Sheridan as Wade.
Yeah, your lead has got to be better.
Yeah. So I think it was just a miscast. I feel that he doesn't fit the look of what Wade Watts probably should be, just being as like essentially a shut-in nerd that basically only lives in, Halliday's world of just trying to figure out, clues and information and everything. But then he also Ty himself maybe it's just the lines he was given. I haven't actually seen anything else in
I haven't seen
he's done. I'm assuming that he was in Maze Runner because he looks like a guy that would be in Maze Runner. And whenever I say
he played Cyclops in X-Men Apocalypse.
That's not helping.
That doesn't help him. Yeah, but basically, like he just doesn't fit that thing. And every time he just like talks, whenever he's like, especially at the end when he's like making his big speech,
the big grand speech. Yeah.
Oh man! Every time he says fight, he like kind of like breaks. He's like fight.
So you know what? I hate to say this, but you know who could have been in that role?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. He's so hot right now. He probably would have handled the awkward shut-in side.
Yeah. Better. I don't know. Maybe it's just because he looks a little bit too old for the role.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be high school.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like 17, I think.
Yeah, it's still high school.
Okay, sure. But yeah, I don't know. It was,
and there were a lot of complaints from book fans, right? Because Wade in the book undergoes kind of a transformation, and we don't have the physical transformation.
Yeah, and he's already just kind of physically fit.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily a loss or like was a need for the casting.
Well, it's a difficult thing to get out of an actor for something as short term as a film production, right?
Yes.
Like you can get a physical transformation if you're running a multi-year TV show.
Oh, easy.
Well, or you can get them to bulk up for the movie or slim down for the movie, but you can't get them to slim down and then bulk up, or bulk up and then slim down for the movie.
And if they do, then it's probably hurting them. They should probably not do that.
Yeah,
it should stop.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened with Christian Bale from
The Machinist to
Batman.
Yeah. He should also stop.
Yeah,
he's very good at bulking up and losing weight.
Anyways, but yeah, I mean, I know that was a complaint, and it was kind of like they tried to hit kind of a middle ground.
Yeah,
I think, and I just
didn't really do much.
Ultimately, it was just a and there's just the dialogue is so bad that you really had to be someone good to save that, and there's no hope.
Yeah, it's also kind of sad that Daito and Shoto in the book, I don't know why they changed the names there.
I guess they just didn't like the rhyme. I don't know.
Maybe, but unfortunately, they just didn't really get anything else besides just being the generic Asian.
Yeah, I mean, you're introduced to them from the beginning of the movie, and you barely get anything from them.
Any interaction at all.
Yeah, they're just kind of stand-in generic, and that just kind of...
Well, and in the book there, I mean, like, you still don't get a lot of interaction with them, but you do get some, and what you do get is actually pretty nice.
Yeah, no, you actually get
and you get some decent range. Now, granted, there's big
Changes
changes because Daito dies in the book.
Yeah, IOI kills him.
Yeah. So, it's like there's a lot of other things.
We're just throwing, I guess we could put out spoilers for the book, but it's too late.
We need to go over to plot before we can finish these conversations. So let's
yeah.
move on into the score.
Yep.
And we'll start on what I believe is going to be a high note. And I gave score an 8.
That's pretty high.
That's relatively high.
And so I was waffling on this one because taken individually, listening through the score, it's all high quality composition.
Yeah.
Alan Silvestri.
There's all sweeping and driving and everything that you want out of an action adventure score, but ultimately it is uninspiring.
Yeah, that's
and
okay.
so that's a 7 or an 8, and I ended up high.
I think you're being a little too generous here. I gave it a 7.
Okay.
But mostly because the main theme for Alan Silvestri is very good. And it's one of those where it's like, I could definitely pin it as a Silvestri composition, but I couldn't pin the film immediately, but I could probably figure it out if I listened to the whole thing. Now, because you go through like the library of music that you have, and you're just like, okay, well, it's not that film, it's not this film. And eventually, you're going to land on it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too, because you have the Silvestri soundtrack, but you also have all of the pop 80s music that kind of proliferates the film.
Yeah.
And with that, you have some fantastic, some really good tracks. And Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014.
Something like that. Yeah.
Or 2016, maybe. It came out before Ready Player One.
It came out before this.
And, obviously this is definitely a film that calls for that kind of insertion of just straight popular media.
Nostalgic
media.
Yeah.
And they used it well.
Yes.
Probably my favorite part that that genuinely got a good, ooh, yeah, was whenever right when the final battle was happening and he lifts up the boombox and starts playing
We're Not Gonna Take It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is just fantastic.
Well, and it's a double call out, right? Because you're getting the movie reference for
no. Oh my gosh.
I can see the scene. I could almost name the actor, but I can't. but it's a movie. It's a nostalgic movie call out from the 80s.
Yeah. Is it Matthew Broderick?
I don't think it's Broderick.
No. Oh man.
No, it starts with a C. Oh, look this. Yeah, you're in charge.
I'll look it up.
All right.
Meanwhile, Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I knew it. First try.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 7. And Andrew covered basically everything that I had.
Yeah.
The Silvestri original score. Is it good? Yeah. Is it memorable? Does it hit some of the right notes? Yeah, mostly. But I think the other music that was inserted in with kind of your Boogie Nights.
Say Anything.
Thank you.
Yep.
And it's a who's the main character? Who's the main actor?
I didn't go that far. John Cusack.
There it is, Cusack. I knew it had a C in it. All right. Anyways, but yeah, you get the boombox with the "We're Not Gonna Take It." That was perfectly done, just because it's the double whammy.
Yeah.
But just the insertions of the pop music from the 80s and that was really well done. I think they made sense for what was happening, and they fit with the idea of, well, this kid has been obsessing about this era because Halliday's obsessed about the era, so he's going to revert to these.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that really helped it a lot, because I think for the most part the score was just kind of, it was there.
It was there, but yeah, the pop music definitely pushes it probably from like maybe a 6.
Well, we could also play the game of maybe the plot didn't give the score any emotional points to highlight.
Yeah.
Let's go to the plot, shall we?
All right.
Let's have some fun.
Who wants first? I'm going to
start.
I haven't started
Go for it
yet.
Take it.
And we're definitely going to start on a low note.
All right.
And we're going to probably move higher. I don't know. I gave it a 3.
Oh, that's higher than I thought.
I wasn't that mean.
We almost, I think we've already had 3s on the show. I don't know if any one of us has handed out a 1 or 2 yet.
Like that. If you go down to a 1 or 2, that is like true brutality of like, this was just terrible.
It's like a restaurant not getting under an 85 health score.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you do? Are you like
killing people,
right? Like, are you dissecting? Anyway, we're not going to go into that.
Okay, so the plot. Okay, I'm whenever I try and look at this, because I definitely had a very good positive reception to the book. Whenever I read it, I read it in 2 days. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. And whenever I watch these kind of films, I know that they're going to be different, and I don't.
They have to be different, right?
Yeah, I don't try and hold it to the standard of what the book was. I want it to be the book, but it's probably not going to be that. That's okay. And so the 3 is not because it was different than the book. The movie just doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
Okay, so I'm not going to make a bulleted list because we're going to all talk about this. But my first and main point was, okay, so people have been doing this race for 5 years. People that play video games,
they just try crazy stuff.
They try crazy things.
They break games on release date.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that literally no one has tried to reverse?
Millions. At this point, there have been millions of attempts, and no one has tried this. BS.
Like people beat Elden Ring with a speed run in 45 minutes on the first week,
or they're beating a boss by playing it on a DDR pad.
Yeah, come on.
Come on. This is kind of almost like Steven Spielberg is insulting gamers right here.
It's
like, y'all are just it's a clever trick. You wouldn't. Hush, man.
It's kind of like an insult to the intelligence of you're just like, what? This makes literally no sense. You could have done anything else.
It's like someone who has read about gaming culture but doesn't really know about
they're like,
culture.
they can go backwards.
But they also don't understand just the concept of statistics. Like, if you take a simple puzzle and you dump enough numbers on it, one of them breaks it.
Yeah.
Just by default. That is literally how learning AI works, is you just run the simulation 1 million times because it's a computer, and guess what? One of those attempts solves it.
Yeah, and you have 5 years of what I think is daily races.
Yeah, multiple times a day.
Of when this iterations that happen, and you have clearly IOI has more than enough resources to just throw people at it,
which they do.
They do.
Well, I mean, they're also billed as the soulless corporation that do not allow their employees the freedom of imagination. So
that's fine, but they also have the whole thing is that they have an entire crew of people that are behind of support behind them.
They do have the think group.
But not even
zoologists or whatever they're called.
But not even that. You have these characters like Parzival or Artemis that are that are very in tune with how Halliday thought. And how his core mind works of I like Easter eggs. Let's do things differently than what it is. And then you're just telling me that all of these characters just decided for the past 5 years to just drive straight.
Yeah. The only thing I think that could have been a mitigating factor there without really changing anything else was to make it a substantial in-game resource sink
access
to attempt the race.
Which they kind of go into that a little bit because he starts out with no fuel, right?
Yeah.
Which they're kind of trying to kick back to the book bit of the fact that he's so poor, which
that he can't even get off the main
learning planet. But they don't even touch on that really. But they kind of hit on that a little bit. But if he literally can't start the race because he has almost no fuel, and then he just gets it because everyone's going to crash anyways, well, who cares? You could just putter along and pick up so many coins just following people.
But if you end up raising the stakes of each race, then you tamp down on not enough, but you do tamp down on the number of
attempts.
Just random attempts to try stuff.
Well, that still doesn't IOI still just throws bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only other point that I'm going to make, and I can't even remember if they actually touch on this in the book either, but the fact that in the movie you see all these IOI people just get killed in game, and their rig shuts off, and then everyone gets out of their thing and they run to the next spot, but then other people fill in behind on that rig. So
presumably it's a new login while that other person's like recreating.
Well, okay, so like the only thing that kind of supports that is that whenever Artemis goes to IOI as essentially indentured servitude, she still has her own character avatar.
Yes.
So somehow it's tied to like their bio,
personal identity,
personal identity or something. I don't know. I don't know if that was ever
that one is not well
fleshed out. Yeah.
No, not fleshed. She's there in the flesh, all right. She's not thought out.
Well, I mean, that ties right in with the whole big swaths of guys getting killed in game in exactly the same
order that they are logged in. Yeah, no, it should have just been random people going down. I know it looked really cool visually. And you know what? Spielberg or whoever else was handling that, when you set off the Cataclysm, that looked great. And that's fine. It could look exactly that way because they were on guard duty or whatever else. Don't do it for the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that was 2 of my bullet points.
I want to get in here and I want to get one thing in quick just because it's my quick beat and then Joel can handle it for a little while. But I gave it a 5.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
I feel like that was pretty generous. So I want to take you back to the van, right? So this is in the book. This is not what happens, right?
Correct.
But
because they're at Ogg's
facility.
Yeah.
But they're in this van driving through the streets of Columbus. Whatever, that's fine. And they don't have like the access to like good rigs, so they're like suspended from the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
So think about the amount of movement that you do in this game as it's been expressed throughout the movie, right? Mm-hmm. So throughout this big main battle, the 4 of them are beating the absolute crap out of each other in the back of this van.
Yep.
Like, Parsifal does a full, like, double roundhouse kick in the middle of one of these fights. He just kicked the crap out of an 11-year-old. Just launched him out the window. Like, dude, these are the kind of things that, like, just watching it, you're just like, man, nobody really considered, like, they really wanted this, like, van chase thing or whatever.
That wasn't even really a chase.
It just didn't need to happen. And then you also have the all-powerful companies sending around drones that are just like, I'm sorry, but you launch 1 million drones and like you digitize the city in like 2 days. You're gonna find the postal van or whatever it is. It's just kind of unavoidable. Like it's just even like our current day, not fast forwarding 40 years, most of the large cities, they have so many cameras. Like there's no way that you do something and it's not known or trackable almost immediately. Right? Like it's just so unreal. And like they're logged in. Well, they have an IP address. Well, okay, like these things are all findable. Well,
especially because I think, well, no. So like in the book, at least they don't explain this in the movie, but the reason why they're in Columbus, Ohio, is where Gregarious Games basically main center is, and that is essentially the fastest connection with the least amount of latency.
Yeah, and it's also the tech industry is built up around that, so you have access to resources.
And I'm gonna jump in here. This is like my main point, but I'm gonna go ahead and
go for it
and spoil it here. But in the book, they didn't all start out in Columbus.
Nope.
Correct.
And
they were all in completely different areas.
all over the place. And so the point where they just show up in H's van, they're like, we're all here. It's like,
no, you're not.
This is a worldwide access online game.
And then everyone just happens to be in the same
city.
Come on.
Like all of the it was so bad.
And you can justify it if you reach into the book and talk about the fact that well living here is what gives you best access. So if you move up in the Gunter world, that's the logical place to move to. They don't.
Nope.
They don't even try.
Nope.
And I think that's maybe one of my other peeves here is the way the movie starts. It almost kind of assumes that you've read the book, where they just kind of like toss Daito and Sho in there for you. And they don't take any time because he makes a big point. I don't clan up, right? Well, so you just know these people or you're friends with them, but you're not clan. You're not really working with them. Like what? And they don't. You get that in the book. You get that whole progression, right? Here, there's just no arc. They're just like Daito and Sho they're not even really supporting cast. Like they are so far down the totem pole in terms of characters in this.
So one of my favorite parts in the film, this is sarcasm, is after, so like so they're having like the car chase or whatever at the end of the film. And they're like, take it to the stacks. Okay, cool. Take it to the place you already know, to where the people that the common man. The common man can fight the corporation. Okay, cool. That's fine. And then, like, you know, all this happens and, you know, like guns and death and stuff are happening where like people are trying to kill each other. And they win the day, and Sorrento gets arrested with his finale or whatever. Yeah, which is silly. But then like you have a wide shot of the crowd, and people have like literally like sports signs that say like Parzival and the high five, and like so like you guys just like had these, or did you like banners? You heard they were coming, so you just like got out your marker and just like made a sign for you. It was just like the logistics of it is just so staggering to me. Okay, so
before all the points are gone, I was generous.
Oh my gosh.
And I gave it a 5.
You people.
And it didn't help the final score much.
No, it shouldn't have either.
So I already talked about the high five all being in the same city, and that was just
stupid.
So lazy.
Yeah. It was literally, we only want to CGI one city, not 3.
You could literally just have one line of dialogue that just says
it could all be in game, like when they're talking to each other in game, because they, you know, haven't met each other IRL because they're not in the same city.
Yeah, and it's just be like, hey, you know, gregarious games, that's the closest place to have the least amount of latency. Done.
Yeah.
You don't have to have anything else. Continue.
Right. So then the other thing that's just like, because it's a huge part of the resolution in the third act, and that is Ogden Morrow being the curator,
just hanging around waiting for Parzival to show up.
Just like, was he there the whole time? Every single tour of every person ever?
Millions.
Or he was just waiting. Like,
can you imagine what his life was like when the Easter egg was first announced?
Or
24/7.
Or was the curator an AI that he only took over once it was like, oh, like these are recognized Gunters, and I'm gonna vet them personally?
We don't know, because we weren't told it in the movie at all.
It's so ridiculous, and so it's just bad.
Well, also him just having the bet, like, I get they want to give him the extra life coin. Again, we're referencing book, but it just being kind of the one-off bet of like, well, the dude's the curator. He should know the number. Like, if it is an actual AI, they should know the number of times this is literally what search engines do.
Yeah,
okay. So like the other problem is them having okay, never mind. That is a book comparison, and I'm not going to do that until we get to the entertainment.
So anyway,
okay. Well, hold on.
And talking about book references, the fact that there was a death in the high five in the book raised the stakes.
Yeah.
Everything that was going on.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, this is real.
Yes. And you really needed that in the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the soulless corporations are going to take over the Oasis and monetize everything in our lives is really cerebral. It is not easy to connect to those sorts of stakes.
What I find hilarious too is just the irony of, the bad guy is a soulless corporation that is trying to, monetize the virtual world. And that's kind of what WB did with the film.
Yeah. You played yourself.
Oh, we got an Avatar reference here?
Yeah.
I was going to jump in. We're going to stay away from the book for now. I'm going to stay away from it. So let's talk about something that wasn't earned. How about an entire love story romance that just wasn't earned?
What are you talking about? They earned that. He put on his microfiber haptic suit.
Totally microfiber crotch inlay.
Don't say that. I'm 10% more dead now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only got to do it 9 more times.
Microfiber.
No. But why were they in love? Because they're the main characters.
Yeah, no, that was it. Like, she even says, you don't know, like H makes the point, you don't know who she could be. She makes the point, you don't know me, blah, blah, blah. And they try, when he rewinds time and they get out of the dance floor, they try to have her have the little bit of, well, she's like pushing him away because she doesn't want someone close, right?
Yeah.
But like, they've interacted like 3 times up to this point.
Yeah, like
there's nothing there.
It's unfortunate.
It is so unfortunate. and just, do we want to go on to entertainment?
Let's go on to entertainment.
Let's entertain ourselves with some entertainment scores.
And this is where book comparisons are completely legal.
100% valid.
Yes.
And it is going to be brutal.
For some.
Joel, what you got?
I got an 8.
What?
Whoa.
This is completely subjective.
Yeah, yeah. Justify yourself.
I enjoyed this film. That's all the justification I need. Because
it's
subjective.
That's as much you got.
I don't even.
No, like it was a fun ride. Like I would go on that ride again. I would pay my ticket to go on that ride again.
I can assure you my score is below my threshold.
I personally did not have fond connections to the book. Like I said, I thought it was an interesting thought experiment, but I did not enjoy any of the characters.
That's fair. Of the three of us, you're the coldest on the book.
Right.
That's fair.
So like this is a completely separate thing to me, untethered to any responsibilities to its roots. And as such, I felt like it lived up to what it promised.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that.
Okay. I'm going to go next because I'm pretty sure this is going to be a sliding scale. I gave it a 5.
Right.
That is below my threshold of a rewatch. I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to rewatch the movie if we weren't reviewing it, and watching it was just this is so much worse than if you had asked me if I had not rewatched this and just said, hey, do you remember Ready Player One? Yeah, it was pretty entertaining. Maybe a 7. Maybe I'll rewatch it one day. Nope. Learned my lesson there. And that's not even a book reference. Like the idea that this was released in 2018 and the CGI makes my skin crawl in the way it does is kind of brutal. Like if you had told me, oh yeah, this came out in 2012, like, oh yeah, that was about when it came out. Well, CGI's got a decade to improve. No, this is pretty modern, pretty high budget CGI, and it's rough. And then we're all in Columbus. Welcome to the rebellion. Kill me now.
Yeah.
What rebellion? Who are you rebelling against?
And nobody else is brought up again. We just have
literally never referenced
lame
ever again.
Yeah.
Oh no. Best moment ever. The stacks come down, right? And Parsifal or Wade goes into his little hideout, and then the rebellion dude chloroforms him and just stares straight at the camera just for a solid 4 to 5 seconds. What in the heck are you people doing when you shot this film?
Yeah, you could have at least done it to where it was a closer shot of Wade, and then just a chloroform hand goes over his mouth, and then blackout. You didn't have to see this.
No, and none of that's book complaints, right? I haven't complained. I haven't made the in the entertainment section so far. I've made some references to the other because it's really low hanging fruit because you have this thing, and we will all freely admit that there's a lot in the book that could not be adapted to film.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
It's very cerebral. It's very inner monologue. It's very just Wade. Essentially, it would just be a movie of him talking to himself, right? And no one wants that.
Yeah.
But good Lord, Andrew, let's hear it.
I gave it a 3.
Oh
we still haven't hit the 2 or the 1.
I was hoping for that too.
I was wondering myself.
I would rather watch Book of Boba Fett than watch this movie.
Oh man.
Oh, that's a long time commit.
That puts it in perspective.
So this is the thing is I'm kind of in the same boat as Steven because we all saw it together.
Yeah.
And we all walked out of the theater and we were
generally positive.
Yeah, that was fine. It wasn't the book. That's fine. And
we all understood.
Yeah.
Changes had to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, years go by and you're kind of like, oh yeah, Ready Player One, that was a movie that existed. And then it'll come up like, oh, do you want to watch that? No, I'm good. and there's whenever you kind of go through a movie like that to where you're you thought you liked it, and then every time there's a chance for it to for you to watch it again, and you're kind of I'm good. I don't really need to watch that. There probably is an indicator somewhere. There's something in there that's just saying, hey, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was just a brutal just thought process of why and how they changed the book from what it was into whatever it is now.
And it's not even they changed it. It's just
It
what
didn't
you gave us
exist.
is so much worse.
Well, what kills me is the kind of the whole point of the first challenge in the book is that anyone literally can do it.
Right. So Joel earlier in this segment, not this segment, but earlier segments made the argument of, well, it's more believable if it's in-game material. It's hard to get to, right? And that limits the thing. The whole purpose of the concept was the open world freedom. Anyone could compete, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why anyone could compete was because it is on an educational planet, meaning that it is free access to everyone, and that them basically making it to where you had to have a fast car, you had to be able to afford to go in the race is directly against what Halliday wanted. Period.
Or like, spouses.
Yeah. Like, and that is not one of those things where it's like that is a core concept of the franchise and the story. That is not a difference between, I didn't like that they had a race instead of going through a vector craft dungeon that's just on a school planet. It's literally just a core change.
I watched Wheel of Time on Prime. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's kind of insulting because like I can totally understand that they didn't have the money or the budget or whatever to get
they had the budget
or to get
the properties.
to get war games for that. Like that's totally fine. I completely can understand that and I forgive them for that. I would rather have war games. I don't like The Shining. I like war games. Matthew Broderick's fantastic in that film. But
see War Games, great film.
Yeah.
Real hacking.
Then obviously they basically combined the final challenge with the attack on the base, which is two completely different things in the book because you have the Rush album kind of thing for the final challenge, and then everyone needs to go to Anorak's castle to actually open up the gate. Yeah. Because but then IOI is there defending it because they have just basically entrenched themselves to make sure that no one else could get it whenever it happens. And it's just like there's just some of these choices that they make, and I actually like that I did like the change where Artemis basically goes to infiltrate IOI instead of Wade, because it basically just gives her something.
It gives her something to do. Yeah, it's much stronger for her as a character. Yes.
But then just basically removing Ogden Morrow as a character throughout the entire film is just unfortunate. One, because it's Simon Pegg and he's a good actor, and he would be fun to kind of see interact with the characters and stuff.
They needed all the help they could get. Don't give them 3 seconds at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but then again, it's just one of those things where it really makes the quotation marks worldwide experience that these characters are hypothetically involved in really small when everything happens in Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
Yeah, it's and at least in the book, they go to Oregon?
Yes.
I think it's Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I had a good one. You touched on something a moment back that flashed in my brain for just a moment.
I cannot read your mind, so I have no idea.
I know what it was. So I get it. You can't afford war games.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. You can't afford The Shining. Okay, that's fine. But you also subverted the core concept of that scene of, well, you have to be flawlessly hit. Like, you could have easily done like, well, the IOI drones can't do it because none of them connect with it, and just having someone talking in their ear isn't enough for them to
be able to
pull the scene off completely, whereas they can because they've lived it, breathed it, doing all this research, right?
Yeah. Like they have so many other films that they could just pull
it's
from.
Warner Brothers. They have a huge Space Jam 2 proved it. They have a huge catalog to pull from, right? Like, man,
it's just unfortunate.
It is, and it wasn't even like it wasn't the book, because like we said, first impression was it wasn't the book, but I can totally understand that changes had to be made, and then actually watching it from kind of a critical perspective was like, yeah, you had to change things, but what are you doing?
Yeah, it was just because watching it the second time, because I was not actually looking forward to watching it the second time when initially it was like, oh cool, Ready Player One, I'll watch that again, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to watch that again, but then I have to because we have a podcast about it.
Yeah, and man, the dialogue was so much more cringe than I ever thought.
It was pretty cringe, but it's probably also cringe in the book. I just don't remember it as much.
Yeah, probably. You just don't have to watch an actor do it.
What little dialogue you actually get in the book.
Yeah.
A lot of internal dialogue.
Now, Joel, do you have any other passing thoughts?
No.
Justify that 8. Come on.
I already did.
He got
and it is completely
he gave
subjective.
it a B.
That makes me feel worse.
But he gave it a B.
A subjective B, not an objective B.
Yeah. Okay.
So you broke me with that one.
we gave it a 5.3 total for
right. Yeah.
Entertainment.
For entertainment.
And frankly, like the more that we talk, the more that you're making what I wish I had written a lot lower. So in terms of a debate result, you can mark this as a win for you guys.
Heck yes.
Yes.
If there is a win to be had over Joel, I will take it.
Now, Joel said that we're right. He's wrong. That is all the time we have for this episode. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.